We're on page 47. Good day to everyone. Klolei HaChinuch v'Hadracha, the Frierdiker Rebbe's essay on education and guidance, page 47. Let's learn the Kitzer to refresh ourselves of what we learned yesterday. Kitzer, towards the top of the page. HaChinuch v'Hadracha ha'ma'ula, the best, the kind of education and guidance. It is only when it's based on the essence of the educated and the guided, the student, the child, the employer, the employee. Only when the teacher, when the guide, the madrich, the mechanech, assesses them properly and looks for that essence, then it is, you're on track. There's no guarantees in life, but you have a good chance. But if you don't look to the mahus, who is this student? What is the essential makeup of the student? What God-given abilities was the student given? If you do that, you'll have more success. You don't do that, you'll have less success, and the Rebbe adds, you'll actually hurt them for life. Because, there's a famous vart. I didn't say this yesterday, but listen to this, and you might want to write it down. It might be in a Hayom Yom. If any of you remember it from Hayom Yom, tell me so. Yeah, I think it's a Hayom Yom too. Kishem, just as knowing one's faults is crucial, knowing one's deficiencies is crucial, one's weaknesses is important, greater is it important to know your strengths. Have you come across that in Hayom Yom? Anyone? I believe so. Anyway, this is what I just said encapsulates what the Rebbe said in the previous chapter. It's not just a matter of listen, I didn't take the time to discover the essence of this student, so I'll get to it another time. If I don't get to it, another educator will get to it. Wrong. You have hurt the student. You have hurt the employee and the child and the teenager, because we're dealing here not with knowledge and information. The issue at hand for a mechanech, I can't repeat this enough because the Rebbe repeats it constantly, and it's the theme of the kuntris, so let's not deviate from it. This is not about information and education. This is not about a good teacher in a classroom who explains well or doesn't explain that well. This is about midos. This is about character. This is about a person who's born like a wild donkey, as he's going to quote soon. And how do you uproot and remove this ugly character from the person so the person shines and is beautiful? So here you're talking about something that is essential to turning the person into, as we quoted yesterday in our shir, Perek Gimel Pirkei Avos, Kol sheruach habriya is noiche mimenu, ruach hamochem noiche mimenu. Whoever is pleasant in the eyes of humanity, of people, is automatically pleasant in the eyes of Hashem. That's what we're talking about. Okay, now, if you remember in chapter 7, the Rebbe said that there are 2 points that we have to look at to properly develop the student. One is the mahus, the essence, and one is what he called the matzav. The matzav, you know how they say in Eretz Yisrael. What's the matzav, right? What's the situation? Perek Ches is about the matzav. Let's see. Ches, page 47. Hischalkus bnei Adam, classification of people, mitzad arba inyanim, 4 determinants, 4 details. Bnei Adam maschalkim al pi arba inyanim. Human beings are generally divided in 4 categories, 4 ideas. Aleph, lifi klolis iskam, based on what they do. Colon, either yoshvei oyel, they sit in the tents, meaning they are yeshiva students or kollel people or people who sit and learn the entire time, right? We call them yoshvei ohel. They sit in the tent of Torah. Or are they balei asakim, men, people of business? Asek is business, work. So that's one thing we want to look at. Number two, lefi matzavam, based on their situation, are they ashirim, wealthy, or aniyim, or poor? Three, lefi regilusam, we look at them based on, we analyze and we study them based on their habits. Beli hevdel, all humanity, all people, im toiv, good habits. Do they have good habits or bad habits? And finally, point number 4, lefi mikoyim shavam. This always to me it left such an impression. I learned this so many years ago, the first time, and it's still in my head from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, who knows how long ago. Lefi mokam shavam, where were they raised? On a moshav, on a farm in Duncan, Oklahoma, in Wyoming, in New Mexico, in Eretz HaKodesh, in Brooklyn, or in Harlem. Be'ir Ketana or Gedola. Were they raised in a small city, or Gedola, or a large city? And the Rebbe says these 4 things will give us an understanding of the Matzav Ha'adam. Yes, Moshe.
I'm sorry, forgive me, Rabbi Adolph, I'm just curious. The English reads it slightly different. I'm just curious. You said where were they raised? And the English, I noticed, says their place of residence. So I'm just asking, the reason I'm asking is because I'm wondering, according to what you said, is there a difference in meaning and significance of...
I hear. Let's continue and see. You're right. It says the English is the correct translation, and I use the word raised because that's what stands out of my mind. And we'll see if it talks about it later, and you'll see why I used it or not. Okay, so hold on.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks. Okay.
Next paragraph. Sheish miflog is bnei adam. Now the Rebbe says these 4 groups have six types. Aleph, Yoshvei Ohel. Beis, Bali Asokim, business people. Ashirim, Gimel, wealthy. Dalet, Aniyim, poor. Hey, Dorim B'Yaktana, they live in a small city. Or Vav, Dorim B'Yagdel, they live in a large city. Although all together, all kinds, all types, are obligated b'shmidas kiyama mitzvahs to do mitzvahs, maisios, actual practical mitzvahs, and to set times for Torah, vanhoga b'midas yishodas, and to conduct himself in proper etiquette and character midas. B'cholza, nevertheless, hine he mischalkim b'inyonei chinuch v'adrocha. They differ in the manner of which one should educate and guide them. Kol mifloga, each group, lifi oircha bechayim hayoim yoimim, based on their day-to-day affairs. It's very nice to say we're all obligated to learn and to daven and to do mitzvahs and be a mensch and everything, but the 6 groups, which I think you see includes all of life's affairs, play a major difference and role in how we express that. Let's go next for HaChinuch v'Hadracha HaMusaderes v'Habatucha. The organized, Misuderet, v'Habatucha, and the guaranteed Chinuch and Hadracha, Tzricha lahatim ligil hamachunech v'Hamudrech, has to be tailored to a pupil's age. Look at note number 29 for a second in the English. Now Rabbi Yosef Yitzchak qualifies the import of the above classifications of people. When educating children, the aforementioned distinctions are largely inapplicable. They're not poor, they're not rich, they're children. They're in their parents' home. When educating grown-ups, however, their age is no longer a major factor in the equation, Why? Because they're already grown up. Only their general type classes, which by adulthood have already emerged. What the note is saying is, the Rebbe puts all six together, but as they apply to children or to adults, some of the issues are not, they've already been established, and you understand? And some of the issues don't apply. So wealthy and poor doesn't apply to a child, and this other issue of the way a person is already with their midos as a grown-up, their midos are already full force. But nevertheless, he gives us a general categorization and klal, an architectural view of the greater issue. Okay?
So maybe how would the Raayatz
that the person more rich doesn't apply to be a rich kid or
okay, wait. I know, but here he said whether the person is now rich. That's why this answers what Moshe brought up. That's why I interpreted the way I learned it last time. Let me really finish what it says in the paragraph. Is that we could apply everything in various ways to everyone, but right now the text reads. He says the financial situation, wealthy or poor. He means right now. A child is not wealthy or poor. What you're saying is he's raised in a wealthy home. He's raised in a poor home. So that's another nekudah. Do me a favor, Chevron. Could you hold off your questions for 2 minutes? Let's go further. See if he says something. Okay. Ayer pera odem yivolid. Man is born like a wild donkey. A quote from Eov 11:12, chapter 11, verse 12. Ayer, a donkey. Pera, wild. Adam, man. Yivolid is born. Man is born like a wild donkey. Next page, 49, Parsha Aleph, as it says over there. Beseder Gidilose Shel Adam, man's growth. Listen to this. This is Geshmak. Ben Shana, when you're 1 year old, Yaakov, Daimel Melech, a baby is like a king. Everyone pampers the baby. Everyone brings everything to the baby. The food, carrying, and everything else. Daimel Melech. You become Ben Shtayim, 2 years old, V'shalish, and 3 years old. Daimel Chazir. The child is similar to a pig, to a chazir. Why? The child, I want everything. I need this, I need this. 1 year old, the baby's not saying I need this. It's the nature to treat it. It's a 1 year old child. But when you're already 2 and 3, and you're starting to walk, and you're starting to talk, and all this, it's like, I don't know, if you have a better interpretation, that's my interpretation. For now, at least. Ben Eser Shana, when you become 10 years old, Koifetz, in Yiddish we have a word, Yoni, springt. Springt.
Yeah.
He jumps. Koifetz, he jumps. Kagdi, like a goat. He's a budding teenager. He's 10 years old. He's going into his teen years. I want this, and it's different than the 2-3-year-old, of course. Next paragraph. You can't compare the educating of a yeled, of a child, to a nar. What's a nar? An older child. Let's say a teenager. What's one of the main things? The main things of educating a child? To be clean, tznius, venimus, to be modest and proper manners. Shaloi li is ravson, shouldn't eat like a glutton, like a fresser, Ukedoime binyonim peutim, and so other things that are similar in matters that are peutim, kind of small and insignificant. Avol muchrochim, but absolutely necessary. Right? Oh, a little clean here, a little clean there, big deal. No. Mukhrachim. But compared to the big picture, it's piyutim, but mukhrachim. So you like that term? Piyutim, avol mukhrachim. Yisoid hahevdo. Why are they mukhrachim? Moshe, why are they absolutely necessary? Because this is the foundational distinction between min chai, between the animal kingdom, min amedaba, to the human kingdom, is in cleanliness. You don't make all over yourself, and you clean up yourself. And all these things make the basic difference between a chai and a medaber. This is all the chinuch of a yelet. The chinuch v'adrochas hanar. Now he talks about the educating of a nar, of a teenager. Hu mi'ule mizeh v'ikoram b'shmiras bichas hanen, is above this. We're going a step further. What is that? Making sure they make brachos, bichas hanenin, limud, to study, derech eretz, kibud hoirim, respect for parents, mashmas lemoirim, listening to teachers. These are all things that are important and crucial to a teenager beginning with his teen years. Then the Rebbe says there's a third stage when you get to your bar mitzvah years. So you can't compare the chinuch that is necessary at that time to the chinuch that was adequate from, nar, I guess 10 or so, 9, 10, to bar mitzvah. Should be korei who b'shmiras kiyum mitzvah behider. If you ask yourself, you have boys or grandchildren who are getting to bar mitzvah age, what does the Rebbe see as the primary importance, Avi, at that time? Hadrocha, what does the Rebbe say here? B'shmiras kiyum mitzvahs behidur. Not just to do the mitzvah, but to do the mitzvah in a beautified way. Behidur, to be mahader in the mitzvah. Not to get away with, with anything you can get away with. Number 2, what's important at that time? Shmiras mani atfilu v'tzibur. So important. You want your kids, grandkids to daven with a minyan later? Start them young and be an example. When they're 11, 12, they see you going to shul, they will come along. Not just the shachris, mincha ma'ir as well. So shmiras zmanei hatfila uvetzibur, keeping the times of tefillah, not davening after the chatzos, whatever, or zman tefillah, whatever, uvetzibur, and with a minyan. Number 3, shkidas bilimud, to put forth diligence and effort in the learning of Torah. 4, shmiras azman, keeping a time. A time is a time. We don't keep a time and we say, oh, this means a half an hour later. Another very important thing is teach the pre-bar mitzvah boy and bas mitzvah girl the importance of respecting and learning from people who are l'mayla mimenu, who are older than him. V'kachi hamida, and so is the midah b'chinuch v'adracha lahalas is amachunach v'amudrach. This is the style of good education, is to constantly climb the ladder, midarga ledarga ad oisei harum haroi loi, from level to level to the point that is appropriate for him. So in other words, at bar mitzvah, at pre-bar mitzvah, if you suffice with what you taught him from 9, 10 till then, it's not proper. You're missing an opportunity, and you're not giving that child, teenager, what they need. The Rebbe calls everything he just said in the previous paragraph, he calls it spiritual, ethical sustenance. Hamazon, you like those words? Hamazon, hamusari. Usually we use the mazon for food. Here is using it for the ethics. Hamazon hamusari doime is comparable to mazon hagufni to actual physical food. How? He explains. Hakol yoidim, everyone knows, ki basar toiv u'marok, good meat, and soup, chazak, and sharp soup, mechaskim koiches ha'odam, strengthen man's koiches, his powers, his talents, his senses, yoiser mitipas cholav b'mayim mesukim, more so than a drop of milk in sweet water. Right? Because nevertheless, if an infant of 1 month will eat marok chazak, sharp soup, ubasar toiv, and good meat, yamus, he'll die. It's too much. And if you feed an adult sweet water in tipas cholav with a drop of milk mixed in it, yechalash, he'll become weaker. He'll be weak. It's not enough to feed his body, his growing body. So to Kainhu b'mazon musari, in the ethical food, the ethical sustenance, asher tzarech lahasen b'ktanim, you have to give ktanim, minors, young people, youngsters, what they need ethically. Lefi hagil, based on their age, uvikdolim, and adults, lefi hamaflega, based on their type. Right? Because once you're already Yaakov, once you're already a gadol, you're already an adult. Here it's more about the type versus the actual, all the issues we spoke about before. All these issues are when you're raising a youngster from birth through teenhood. When you become an adult, here what's necessary and what needs to be emphasized and what's crucial is the issues of community, poverty and wealth, and those issues. Let's continue. Just as an organized and guaranteed kind of chinuch is based on age, it also needs to be based on types when you're dealing with adults. And he says, just like a garment, you want to put on clothing that fit you. If it's too short, next page. Loi yovi toeles, there won't be any benefit. Vim yarich, and if it's too long, yikoshel boy, you'll trip over the long clothing. So just as garments need to be tailored to the person's fit and size and all that, so too with education, if they're not fitting for the particular student and the situation, in a leizubulvad, not only that, they won't bring any benefit, will actually ruin him upon him in two ways. One, you'll dress him with too short clothing. So what does that mean ethically? You're not supplying for him the proper midas that he needs to know about and develop. You'll also hurt him if you give him too much, more than what he can handle. Kitzur, I'm going to go further. Kitzur, the development of the difference between chinuch hadracha b'gdolim by adults, lefia maflega, it is based on the types. Uviktanim, and by the youngsters, tzeirim, and the youngsters, lefia gils, based on the age. Let's just continue, because he is still in the middle of a thought. Tess. Aleph, now he goes back to develop those 6 points. That's why I want to continue. The division that we mentioned, based on the work, the livelihood work of human of people, sugim kolim, can be divided into 2 categories. Aleph, yoshvi oil, who sit in a tent and learn all that, and beis bal yasok, and business people. Hachaluka al zois, this difference ki im kiyena, and his chalkos nafshis, although it is not what we call a soul-like difference, it is not like the difference of the brain, which comes due to how much of the soul is revealed, where one has more brain capacity, one has less brain capacity, one understands things this way. As we explained earlier in chapter 3, she is chalkus nafshis, we call that a soul difference. A simple person will never, you hear this? Will never transform to become a genius. He has a pasha to brain. That's what God gave him. Like is customary by human nature. So if the human nature is that he's pashut, the brain is pashut, he won't become l'chochem mufla, a wondrous genius, by creating ideas, vavonas, and scholars, and comprehending deep thoughts, amukis that are deep. It ain't him. He doesn't have that brain capacity. The Rebbe says there is an exception. If an outside force that's outside of the person happens to impact him, that's beyond the norm, but in a wondrous way. So in other words, the Rebbe is saying it's not that it can never happen, but it's not happening based on who he is. Sometimes, and I've seen this, I think I told you once, I knew a boy, Baruch Hashem, he's a young man, he's a Raayatz. It was my brother's class, very simple guy. And he lost his father, Nebuch, and he started to learn, and he learned, and he became, again, I'm not convinced that his brain didn't change, but the diligence that he put into it gave him lots of information, and he studied it well. So there are outside exterior stimuli that causes things to happen, but the Rebbe calls that b'derech pella. It's a wonder. In other words, it can, but we're talking about the person based on what Hashem gave him, what type of cup he has. There is someone who has a genius cup, someone who has a chacham cup, a bina cup, a das cup, and someone who has a simple cup, and it's all fine, but that's the way it is. Let's continue. Einstein is not becoming a person on the street. I'm sorry. Einstein is an Einstein. A person's a big chacham, is a big chacham. He ain't changing to become ish hamoini, a person of the masses. And the Rebbe says this is the way we find it naturally every day. The Rebbe says sometimes, God forbid, if someone is punished by Hashem, he can neufel madrigosa, he can fall from his being this big chacham, Rahman Litzlan. And we've seen this too. People who fall into yes, Yaakov.
Better is the Rebbe addressing this because we know plenty of stories of boys that weren't such Bali Kishrin at one stage, and then they blossomed, and you see them become a huge Talmud Chacham, and didn't seem to be part of their teva years before.
Well, so Yaakov,
it does happen.
Yes, Yaakov. The question is, when you say it didn't seem, that's a big word you use. It didn't seem. We're not talking about it didn't seem. We're not talking about someone had the brain capacity and just it was a matter of using it. Here he's talking about someone that was given the chatchila, and I'm sure we've all seen that. So I have a blockage with math. I don't know why, but that's the way it is. And believe me, I worked hard in school, okay? But compared to some of my friends, they got it, and I just couldn't get it. Or if I got it, it took me much longer. But that's what we're talking about. And it's, everyone has a certain brain and a certain blockage and whatever. That's what he's talking about. So when you say seem, that's a very big word. And by the way, that's what a good mechanech figures out as well. Is it only seem that way, or is it real that way?
If it is that way, what do you do about
And if it is that way, their behavior modification, there's all kinds of, you see, in Baruch Hashem, today, we do find that even people who weren't blessed, with that particular area of Seichel, there are ways that they could go around it and still have a tremendous amount of knowledge. But let me say it this way, Yaakov, since you mentioned it. Certain Talmidei Chachamim are sharp. They get things quickly. Getting things quickly ain't changing by someone who knows whole Shas. You can have a person who knows the whole Shas, but he still doesn't have a Schnelle cup. Okay? Or he doesn't have an Amkus cup. It's a Gemara. The Gemara says Safra de Mola Dynasty. It's a Gemara. He's like a bucket full of books. But really, he has the information. I mean, this is factual. So that's what he's identifying here. What he's saying here is sometimes there's some kind of the Eibishter does something where even that person gets a gift and is able to overcome his natural brain capacity and go beyond that. And he says the same thing. Sometimes a person who's a chacham god and all that ends up on the streets with the hamoin, whatever. Why is that? I have a friend in Eretz Yisrael, a massive Talmud Chacham, and he's driving a taxi. I didn't see him for 30, 40 years. My heart went out. I was like devastated. I know how much Torah he knows. He got the smicha from the Heichel Shloima, the highest smicha. He got a tudat that he can be a rov in any city in Eretz Yisrael. And what is he doing? Driving a taxi. Why? Parnasa. And why the community doesn't take such a man and put him on a pedestal? You know the answer. Right? So there are many things that play, that take effect and make a difference. But let's stay to the course. Let's continue inside, and then we'll talk a little bit. Okay. He says, what we're talking about in this chapter, in the previous chapter, the division based on business and involvement, is not a soul. Has nothing to do with your soul. Next page, 53. Hine abal esek yochole hoses yeshev oil v'yeshev oil yochole hoses bal esek. Behavior modification. The learner can become a businessman, and a businessman can become a learner. And you have this maisen b'chol yoim. Here, all of us, right? I mean, okay, I'm saying we were not yeshev oil, we're business people in different ways, what we do. And here we're sitting and learning. So, Baruch Hashem. I'm just saying that when it comes to behavior does not require a soul experience. It requires TOT, as we say, right? Sit down and just work, and sit down and learn, and don't budge, and just do your thing. Nevertheless, as long as they're involved in their respective vocation, in Yeshua oil, whether it be sitting or learning or balesik or working, the situation that they're involved with differentiates them what they need or what they want or what they need, to do, and what they should not be doing. In other words, in the business world, you have to be careful with certain things. And in the Torah world, you have to be careful with certain things. The Rebbe says, it's readily acceptable. That's called the Dover Muchlet b'Muskel Rishon. Ki suga yeshva oil, that a full-time Torah learner, nachale misuga balaisik, is superior to the businessman. V'loi habali malacha v'avoida, although not too superior to those of a craftsman or laborer. What does he mean here? Okay, look at note 35, explains it nicely. The meaning of this of the last clause seems unclear. The bracketed text inserted by the translator suggests one possible interpretation, namely, that the stark contrast between the life of a full-time Torah scholar and the life of a businessman is considerably greater than the contrast between that of a full-time Torah scholar and a working person who is not a business person per se. Why? For a regular workman, which he calls a craftsman or a laborer, like a full-time Torah scholar, may also control his own time, may also have a relatively stress-free life. That's correct. And may also work in a religiously friendly environment. In this sense, then, the full-time Torah scholar class is superior to that of the business class, but not superior to that of the working class. What do you think about that? Did you follow or not? Was it too fast? He's saying, Chevra, wake up. Hillel, did you get it?
Yeah. So it seems like he's emphasizing here the kind of a life, what we would call today a lifestyle.
Yeah.
That a person who's a craftsman and artisan they're self-employed. They manage their own time. They may not get so wrapped up in sort of the aspects of life that a businessman would.
Right, and therefore, to say that a Torah, a Yosef oil is superior, he's saying he's not superior to him. So in other words, hello, Chavre, listen to this. He's not talking about now the fact that you learn Torah. What greater thing is than Torah? He's not talking about that. He's talking about the how should I say this? The work of learning Torah. So he says, when you learn Torah, you're a free man, right? And he's saying someone who sets his own hours is also a free man. Whereas a business person who he means here, not a CEO, or even a CEO, whatever. He means someone who is, who has to, be a 9 to 5 and make it and be responsible to others, or others, be on top of others, is not as free. That's what he says. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Tomorrow I might have to learn with my cell phone, so I hope it works out well. Yoini, what did you say before, Yoini? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
I was saying in the beginning of the show, you were talking about how a person's not tivus. You used a different word. I forgot what the word was used. A person's midos. The midos are formed, right? So
yeah.
We're talking about a child. It's being formed, but an adult, it's already formed. What would the Raayatz say about a Baal Tshuva? Someone that's 40 years old, 50 years old, becomes a Baal Tshuva. Is he a child?
That's a good loaded question. That requires a big study. In fact, I was either dreaming about it or I woke up about it. That I really want to do a book on Bali Tshuva, but I have to develop the idea. That's a heavy question. I don't mean heavy politically. I mean to say it. Taking what he says here and applying it to the Baal Teshuvah is a very interesting analysis, I think. So the answer is I don't have an answer for you yet, but I'm glad you brought it up. So, some would tell you, some would tell you off the cuff. They would tell you, about Tshuva at 40, 50, 60, or 30, whatever, is like a child. That's what you can hear from someone who's not thinking. I think it's a lot deeper and a lot more profound because, again, I don't see this as an analysis where Torah learning versus work. That might be true, but not over here. This is not the context of this discussion. Here we're talking about what does Torah learning do to the character of a person regarding stress and regarding feelings and regarding attitudes. What does business do to a person in those areas, and what does a business A and business B, business A being the one who's responsible to others and occupied by others, And business B, what he calls the craftsman or whatever, the person who makes his own time. And that is the comparison that he's looking at right now. Okay? So that applies also to a Baal Tshuva. What does that have to do? He was a boy, he was a teenager, he was an adult. So the fact that he ate a hamburger, or the fact that he spent time with girls, or the fact that he did whatever he did, so what? Not so what. Of course it makes a difference. But as far as experience of life, what Hillel called, lifestyle, that lifestyle is an analysis. Yes, it needs to be taken into the equation. And this is a very important point, especially children that are raised in Bali Tshuva homes. We see this, when we have with the Shidduchim, and there's a whole it's a whole study, it needs, there's a certain way you're raised in a home. So children raised in a Baal Teshuvah home, and now are they Baal Teshuvah from before marriage, from after marriage? There's so many variances and nuances in this equation. Chevra, we'll talk tomorrow. I have another shiur. Sei gesund. Tell to everyone, have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Bye.
You.
Yeah. Okay. Take care. Tzlacha.